He was mocked for buying a useless cow at the auction. Now everyone is silent. Samuel Miller was at the busiest cattle auction in the region when he decided to make the bid that would change his life forever. At 62 years old, the rancher was facing the worst financial crisis of his life and had only $500 in his pocket, his last reserve of money. That's when a skinny cow, clearly sick and limping on its right hind leg, appeared at the auction. The auctioneer could barely spark interest with the opening bids, and when Samuel raised his hand, offering his last $500, an explosion of laughter echoed throughout the barn. "That Samuel has finally lost his mind," shouted Henry Thompson, one of the biggest breeders around, pointing at him while laughing. $500 for a cow that can barely stand," added Richard Carter, another well-known rancher in the region, provoking more laughter. The auctioneer, Mr. Arthur, hesitated for a few seconds before banging the gavel. He had known Samuel for over 20 years and had never seen him make such a questionable deal. "Are you sure about this decision, Samuel?" asked the auctioneer, trying to give him one last chance to reconsider. Samuel just nodded, completely ignoring the mockery around him. There was something about that animal that caught his attention, an intuition he couldn't explain in words. "Sold to Samuel Miller for $500, announced Mr. Arthur, shaking his head in disbelief. The buzz in the barn grew even louder. Men in hats and boots gathered, whispering and pointing at Samuel, who walked determinedly toward the pen where his acquisition was. "Margaret is going to have a fit when she finds out," commented Peter Jenkins, Samuel's neighbor for over 15 years. "Poor woman, married to a man who throws money away like that," added another rancher. Samuel approached the animal and carefully ran his hand over the cow's neck. She was indeed in poor condition, with visible ribs and dull fur, but there was something in her eyes that touched him deeply. The cow, a female with light brown fur and white spots, looked directly at him. At that moment, Samuel felt an inexplicable connection with the animal, as if she were asking for a chance. "Let's go home, girl," he murmured softly, putting the rope around her neck. The journey to his small property was accompanied by curious looks and malicious comments. Neighbors came out of their houses to see the man who had bought the most rejected cow at the auction. Mrs. Martha, a 70-year-old lady who lived down the road, shook her head with pity when she saw them pass. "Samuel has always been stubborn, but this time he went too far," she commented to her granddaughter who was visiting. When he finally arrived home, Samuel found Margaret, his wife of 40 years, watering the plants in the backyard. The smile on her face vanished instantly upon seeing the cow limping behind her husband. "Please tell me you didn't spend our money on that thing," said Margaret, dropping the hose on the ground. Samuel lowered his eyes, knowing he had a lot to explain. "Margaret, I know it seems crazy, but something told me to buy her." "Something told you?" Margaret raised her voice. "Samuel, that was the money for next week's market. How are we going to buy food?" The argument that followed was one of the most intense in recent years. Margaret, a practical woman, careful with finances, couldn't understand how her husband had made such an irresponsible decision. 40 years of marriage, Samuel. 40 years. And you've never done such a foolish thing," shouted Margaret, her eyes filled with tears. "Please give me a week. Just 1 week to prove it wasn't in vain," begged Samuel. Margaret Miller slammed the door as she entered the house, leaving Samuel Miller alone in the yard with his controversial purchase. That night, he slept on the porch, with the cow tied near his makeshift resting spot. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. For the first 3 days, the cow refused to eat anything Samuel offered. She remained in the farthest corner of the small pasture, head down and eyes lifeless. Samuel spent hours observing the animal, trying to understand what was happening. He brought fresh water several times a day and tried different types of grass and feed, but nothing sparked her interest. "She's just going to end up dying," commented Margaret, watching from the kitchen window. "And then what will we tell the neighbors?" "She's not going to die," replied Samuel, not taking his eyes off the animal. "She just needs time to trust us." On the 4th morning, Samuel noticed something different. The cow had moved a few meters toward the water trough and taken a drink. It was a small but significant progress. "That's it, girl. Slow and steady wins the race, he murmured, approaching carefully. It was then that he noticed something strange in her behavior. Whenever anyone approached from the left side, she would quickly move away. But when Samuel stood on the right side, she allowed a closer proximity. During lunch, he mentioned the observation to Margaret. She's afraid of something specific. It's not just the usual wariness of a frightened animal. Samuel, stop splitting hairs. Accept that you were swindled, and let's see if we can at least sell her to the butcher, sighed Margaret. No, Samuel slammed his fist on the table, surprising his wife. I won't give up on her. Not now. Margaret had never seen her husband so determined about an animal. Throughout all their years of marriage, Samuel had always been a thoughtful man, weighing pros and cons before making any important decision. On the fifth morning, something happened that completely changed Samuel's perspective on his acquisition. He arrived at the pasture and found the cow gently licking an abandoned puppy that had appeared on the property during the night. The small animal, who couldn't have been more than 2 months old, was clearly malnourished and alone. The cow, who until then had rejected any contact, was protecting the puppy as if it were her own offspring. "Look at this, Margaret," called Samuel, moved. "Come see." Margaret came out of the house curiously and was surprised by the scene. The cow, who had seemed almost lifeless in previous days, now demonstrated a strong, protective, maternal instinct. "She has a good heart, this cow," admitted Margaret, touched by the scene. From that moment on, the animal's behavior began to change gradually. With the puppy as company, she began to eat better and show more spirit. Samuel decided to name the cow Hope and the puppy Buddy. The names reflected exactly what he felt about the situation. "Hope, that name suits her," agreed Margaret, finally allowing herself to form an emotional bond with the animal. During the second week, Samuel noticed the cow had a peculiar way of walking. It wasn't exactly a common limp, but rather a protective movement, as if she were avoiding putting weight on a certain point. He decided to call Dr. Thomas, the local veterinarian who served small farmers. Although money was tight, he knew he needed a professional opinion. "Samuel, this cow has a history," said Dr. Thomas after examining her carefully. "Look at this mark here on the neck." The veterinarian pointed to a small, almost imperceptible scar covered by darker hair. "This here is a brand mark, but it's not a common branding. It's very small and precise." Samuel approached to get a better look. There really was a mark he had never noticed before. "What does this mean?" he asked. "It means this cow came from somewhere special. Marks like these are used on elite cattle, animals with registered pedigree." The veterinarian's words echoed in Samuel's mind all day. Could he have bought an animal far more valuable than he imagined? That night, he decided to investigate the cow's origin. He remembered that at the auction, the seller was a young, nervous man who seemed in a hurry to get rid of the animals. "Margaret, do you remember the young man who was selling the cow at the auction?" "Yes, I do. He seemed distressed, poor thing. They say he was the son of the late Mr. George from St. Jude's Ranch." Samuel knew St. Jude's Ranch by name. It was a property traditionally known for the quality of its cattle, but it had closed a few years ago after financial difficulties. "Tomorrow I'll try to find that young man," Samuel decided. "What for?" questioned Margaret. "To understand the story of our Hope." The next day, Samuel discovered that the young seller was named Charles Harrison and worked as a caretaker on a neighboring ranch, about 30 kilometers away. The trip there was made in Samuel's old pickup truck, which rattled with every pothole on the dirt road. When he arrived, he found Charles fixing a fence. "Good afternoon, young man. I'm Samuel Miller. I bought a cow from you at last week's auction." Charles stopped what he was doing and looked at Samuel with an expression of curiosity mixed with worry. "That brown cow with white spots, the one that was limping?" "That's the one," confirmed Samuel. "I wanted to talk to you about her." Charles lowered his eyes and sighed deeply. "Mr. Samuel, can I be frank with you?" "Of course, son. Speak freely." "I didn't want to sell that cow. She was the last one left from my father's herd." The conversation that followed revealed a moving story. Charles Harrison was the only son of George Harrison, who had been one of the most respected breeders in the region for decades. "My father built an exceptional herd over 40 years," Charles recounted, his eyes moist. "Each animal was selected with great care." "And what happened?" asked Samuel, already imagining it was about financial difficulties. "My father fell ill 3 years ago. Lung cancer. The treatments were expensive, and little by little we sold the cattle to pay the doctors." Charles explained that he tried to keep some of the best animals, but after his father's passing, he discovered debts he didn't know existed. "That cow you bought, her name is Star. She was one of the best breeding cows my father ever had." "Star?" Samuel repeated the name, surprised. "Why was she in such poor condition then?" "After my father passed, she stopped eating properly. It was as if she was grieving his loss. My father spent the last months of his life personally caring for her." The revelation deeply touched Samuel, who began to better understand the animal's behavior. "Charles, do you have her papers, the registration documents?" "Yes, sir. They're all at my house. If you want, I can show you." Charles led Samuel to a small, simple house where he lived alone. From an old drawer, he pulled out a folder with documents yellowed by time. "Look here," he said, showing a registration certificate. "Star, daughter of Golden Ridge and granddaughter of Golden Valley champion." Samuel didn't understand much about bovine genealogy, but by the impressive names on the document, he realized he had acquired a very special animal. "Charles, why didn't you say this at the auction?" "Mr. Samuel, no one would have believed me. The cow was in terrible shape, and I needed the money urgently to pay off a debt that was due that week." "What kind of debt?" Charles hesitated before answering. "My father, in his last months of life, borrowed $5,000 from a bank agent in the city. He didn't know the interest rates were predatory. By the time I found out, the debt was already at $12,000. The young man's situation was desperate. He worked as a caretaker, earning minimum wage, and there was no way to pay off such a high debt. And if you don't pay, they'll take what's left of my father's ranch. It's the only asset I have." Samuel felt his heart tighten at the story. He realized Charles had sold the cow not out of greed, but out of sheer necessity. "Young man, I'm going to make you a proposal," said Samuel, after thinking for a few minutes. Charles looked at him expectantly. "I'll take care of Star as if she were my own daughter. In return, you help me with her on weekends. We split the costs and maybe one day the profits too." "Mr. Samuel, you don't know me. How can you trust me like that?" "Charles, anyone who loves an animal the way you love that cow deserves a chance." The agreement between the two was sealed with a handshake. Charles was moved by Samuel's generosity and promised to help with whatever was needed. When Samuel arrived home that afternoon, he found Margaret tending to Star and Buddy in the pasture. "How did the talk with the young man go?" she asked, curious. Samuel told her the whole story he had discovered. Margaret was touched by Charles's plight and impressed by the revelation about the cow's origin. "You mean our Star is a purebred cow?" "Not just purebred, Margaret. She's descended from champions." That night, the couple discussed the next steps. With the documents in hand, they knew they had a valuable animal, but they also understood it would require investment to restore her physical condition. "Samuel, do you think we did the right thing?" "Margaret, for the first time in a long while, I am absolutely certain of something." The change in Star's behavior was gradual but steady. With proper care and the comforting presence of Charles on weekends, she began to regain weight and vitality. Dr. Thomas, the veterinarian, was impressed with her progress. "Samuel, in 30 years of practice, I've rarely seen such a complete transformation in an animal." "It's the power of love and patience, Doctor." "And good genetics, too," added the vet, smiling. During the 3rd month, Star began to show signs she was pregnant. The discovery was made during a routine checkup. "Samuel, I have some news that will interest you," said Dr. Thomas, putting away his stethoscope. "What news?" "Star is expecting a calf." Samuel was silent for a few seconds, taking in the information. "Are you sure, Doctor?" "Absolutely. From what I can calculate, she should give birth in about 4 months." The news spread quickly through the neighborhood. The same men who had mocked Samuel at the auction now showed curiosity about the cow's development. Henry Thompson, one of those who had ridiculed the purchase the most, showed up at the property one Saturday afternoon. "Samuel, I came to see how that cow you bought is doing," he said, trying to disguise his interest. "Take a look, Henry. She's over there in the pasture with Charles." Henry observed Star carefully. The transformation was undeniable. The animal now had an imposing stature, a shiny coat, and movements that showed full health. "Samuel, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "How did you know she was worth it?" Samuel reflected before answering. "Henry, sometimes you have to trust your heart, not just your eyes." The answer left Henry thoughtful. He had raised cattle his whole life and had never stopped to consider intuition as a selection tool. Richard Carter also visited the property a few weeks later. His approach was more direct. "Samuel, if you want to sell that cow, I'll make you a good offer." "She's not for sale, Richard." "But you didn't even hear my offer." "I don't need to. She's priceless." Samuel's firm response surprised Richard, who was used to getting what he wanted through attractive financial offers. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. As Star's pregnancy progressed, so did the interest from the local rural community. Veterinarians from other towns began visiting the property to see the animal. Dr. Edward, a bovine reproduction specialist who came from the city, was impressed with Star's genealogy. "Samuel, do you have any idea what you have here?" "A special cow, I imagine." "Much more than that. Star is a direct descendant of one of the most valued bloodlines in the country. If the calf inherits her traits, it could be worth a fortune." The information left Samuel and Margaret both excited and worried. Excited by the possibility of financial change, worried about the responsibilities it would bring. "Doctor, how much could a calf like that be worth?" "Depending on the characteristics, between $50,000 and $100,000. Margaret nearly fainted at the answer. It was more money than the couple had earned in their entire lives. "But that's if it's born healthy and has the desired traits," the veterinarian cautioned. "It's not a guarantee." That night, Samuel and Margaret talked about the future until the early hours. "Samuel, do you realize our life could change completely?" "I do, Margaret, but I also realize the responsibility will be much greater." "Do you think we're ready?" "No one is born ready for everything, Margaret. We learn as we need to." Charles was also anxious as the birth approached. He had practically become a member of the family, visiting Star every day after work. "Mr. Samuel, my father would be proud to see Star like this," he commented one afternoon, watching the cow graze peacefully. "I'm sure he would, Charles, and he'd be proud of you too." The young man had matured a lot during those months. The partnership with Samuel had given him a new perspective on life and rekindled his passion for cattle raising. 2 weeks before the expected due date, something happened that worried everyone. Star began showing signs of restlessness and refused food for 2 days in a row. Dr. Thomas was urgently called. "It's normal, Samuel. She's preparing for birth, but let's monitor her closely." "Doctor, will she be all right?" "Samuel, Star is a strong, healthy female. I see no reason for excessive worry." Even so, Samuel decided to spend the nights in the pasture, sleeping in a chair near the shelter where Star rested. Margaret brought blankets and hot coffee during the night. "Samuel, you'll end up getting sick if you keep this up." "Margaret, I can't leave her alone now." Samuel's dedication touched everyone in the neighborhood. Even those who initially mocked him now admired his determination. On the night of a rainy Thursday, Star went into labor. Samuel woke at the first signs and immediately called Dr. Thomas. "Doctor, I think the time has come." "I'm on my way, Samuel. Stay calm." Charles was also called and arrived at the property before dawn. He found Samuel pacing nervously back and forth while Margaret prepared warm water and clean towels. "How is she?" asked Charles, still breathless from running. "Strong and determined, as always," replied Samuel. The birth proceeded without complications. At 5 in the morning, a healthy male calf was born, with characteristics that impressed even Dr. Thomas. "Samuel, this calf is exceptional," said the veterinarian, examining the newborn. The calf had a golden coat with perfectly distributed white spots, a robust build, and agile movements even in its first hours of life. "He looks just like Star's father when he was born," said Charles, moved. "My father always said Golden Ridge was the most beautiful calf he had ever seen." Samuel Miller named the calf Miracle, a name that perfectly reflected what that birth meant to everyone. The news of the birth spread quickly. That same day, 3 important breeders from the region showed up at the property wanting to see the calf. "Samuel, can I make you an offer for the calf?" asked Colonel William Walker, the most influential breeder in the region. "He's barely even born yet, Colonel. But I know quality when I see it. I offer $30,000 cash in hand." The offer was tempting, but Samuel was not prepared to make such a quick decision. "Colonel, I'll think about it." "Samuel, don't think too long. This opportunity may not come again." In the days that followed, the offers kept increasing. Different buyers appeared daily with ever higher proposals. Richard Carter, who had mocked Samuel at the auction, now offered $40,000 for the calf. "Samuel, $40,000, that's more money than you'll ever see in your life." "Richard, didn't you say the same thing about the $500 I paid for the cow?" Samuel's response silenced Richard, who left the property embarrassed. Margaret Miller was torn between the dazzle of the offers and the attachment she had developed for the animals. "Samuel, with $40,000 we could renovate the house, buy a new truck." "Margaret, what if Miracle is worth much more when he grows up? But he could also be worth nothing if there's an accident." It was a difficult dilemma. Samuel knew this could be the only chance for significant financial change in their lives. Charles, meanwhile, argued they should wait longer. "Mr. Samuel, my father always said you don't sell a good animal on the first offer." "But Charles, $50,000 is a lot of money." "It is, Mr. Samuel. But Miracle could be worth double that when he turns one." The pressure increased when Colonel William Walker returned with an even bigger offer, $60,000. "Samuel, this is my final offer. Take it or leave it." "Give me 3 days to decide, Colonel." 3 days, not a minute more. Those were the 3 most difficult days of Samuel's life. He spent hours observing Miracle, trying to imagine what the right decision would be. "Margaret, what do you think I should do?" "Samuel, you've always been the wisest man I know. I trust your decision. But this time I don't know if I'm being wise or stubborn." On the morning of the 3rd day, Samuel had a frank conversation with Charles. "Charles, I need your honest opinion. What would your father do in this situation?" Charles thought for a long time before answering. "Mr. Samuel, my father always said quick money goes quickly, but a good stud can support a family for generations. Even risking losing everything?" "Mr. Samuel, have you lost anything since you bought Star?" Charles's question touched the heart of the matter. Samuel realized that since Star's arrival, his life had completely changed for the better. When Colonel William Walker arrived for the answer, Samuel was prepared. "Colonel, I appreciate the offer, but Miracle is not for sale." "Samuel, you're making a mistake you'll regret for the rest of your life." "Colonel, I regret many things in life, but I never regret following my intuition." Samuel's decision caused conflicting comments in the community. Some supported him, others considered him crazy for refusing so much money. Dr. Thomas supported the decision. "Samuel, you made the right choice. Miracle has the potential to be worth much more than $60,000. Dr. Edward, the specialist from the city, also approved. "Samuel, animals with this pedigree are rare. If well managed, Miracle could become an exceptional breeding bull." During the following months, Samuel invested in special feed and care for Miracle. The calf grew visibly day by day, developing increasingly impressive characteristics. At 6 months old, Miracle was already turning heads wherever he went. He had a large frame, elegant movements, and a docile temperament that made handling easy. "Samuel, this calf is a work of art," commented Dr. Thomas during a routine visit. "Doctor, sometimes I'm afraid of having so much responsibility." "Samuel, great responsibilities come to people who are prepared to take them on." Miracle's fame reached other states. Buyers from different regions began visiting Samuel's small property. Mr. Lawrence, a famous breeder from the neighboring state, offered $80,000 for the calf. "Samuel, you won't find a better offer than this." "Mr. Lawrence, With all due respect, but I don't intend to sell. Samuel, you're being irrational. $80,000 is a fortune for a man in your position. The visitor's remark irritated Samuel, who had always taken pride in his simplicity. Mr. Lawrence, my position is that of a man who knows the value of what he has. The buyer left the property frustrated, commenting that Samuel didn't know how to recognize a good opportunity. Margaret, who was initially tempted by the high offers, now fully supported her husband's decisions. Samuel, I'm proud of you. You're showing everyone that we're not people desperate for money. Margaret, it's not a matter of pride, it's a matter of vision for the future. Charles had become an expert in caring for Miracle. His dedication impressed even Samuel. Charles, you take care of Miracle better than I take care of myself. Mr. Samuel, taking care of him is taking care of the future my father dreamed of for the family. When Miracle turned 9 months old, something happened that would definitively change everyone's perspective on the animal's value. A television program about cattle breeding wanted to do a story on interesting tales from rural life. They learned of Samuel's story through Dr. Edward. Mr. Samuel, we would like to tell your story on television, proposed the producer who came from the city. I don't know. I don't really like being in the spotlight. Mr. Samuel, your story could inspire other small breeders. After talking with Margaret and Charles, Samuel agreed to participate in the story. The filming was done on the property itself, showing Star, Miracle, and the entire journey since the auction. When the story aired, the impact was greater than anyone imagined. The property's phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls from all over the country. Breeders, veterinarians, animal science students, and even the curious wanted to see the story in person. Samuel's small property became a regional attraction. Samuel, you've become a celebrity, joked Dr. Thomas during a visit. Doctor, that makes me more nervous than happy. Samuel, enjoy the moment. Recognition like this doesn't happen every day. The national interest in Miracle brought even bigger offers. A breeders' consortium offered $120,000 for the calf. Samuel, this offer is irresistible, insisted the consortium's representative. For you it might be. For me, Miracle is priceless, replied Samuel without hesitation. Samuel's definitive refusal was interpreted by many as excessive stubbornness. Neighbors commented that he was missing the chance of a lifetime. That Samuel has gone crazy with all the attention, commented Mrs. Martha at the village store. The man doesn't know what's good for him, agreed another resident. But Samuel had made a decision that went beyond money. He wanted to prove that small breeders could also have exceptional animals. At 12 months old, Miracle was entered in his first regional show. Samuel was nervous, but confident in the animal's quality. Charles, what if we can't handle the competition? Mr. Samuel, Miracle doesn't need to compete with anyone. He just needs to be himself. The show was a milestone in Samuel's life. Miracle not only participated, but won first place in the Young Sires category. Samuel Miller, owner of the Champion Miracle of Hope, announced the official announcer. The name Miracle of Hope was Charles's suggestion, honoring both the calf and his mother. Samuel was moved by the choice. The victory at the show multiplied interest in Miracle exponentially. Offers of $200,000 became common. Dr. Edward paid a special visit to congratulate Samuel. Samuel, you've proven that intuition is worth more than money. Doctor, I haven't proven anything yet. Miracle is still very young. Samuel, a regional champion at 12 months, is proof enough of quality. Margaret was radiant with the recognition her husband had earned. Samuel, I'm so proud of you. 40 years of marriage and you still surprise me. Margaret, none of this would have been possible without your support in the difficult times. Charles also benefited from Miracle's fame. Breeders in the region began seeking him out to care for their special animals. Mr. Samuel, I got a better job thanks to Miracle. Charles, you got it because of your talent and dedication. But it was the opportunity to care for Miracle that showed my potential. The friendship between Samuel, Margaret, and Charles had strengthened in a way that transcended business. They had become a family united by a common dream. When Miracle turned 18 months, the time came to decide about his breeding future. Several breeders wanted to use his semen to improve their herds. Samuel, charging for Miracle's stud service, could be more profitable than selling him. suggested Dr. Edward. How so, Doctor? A quality sire can generate income for many years, covering hundreds of females. The idea opened a new perspective for Samuel. Instead of selling Miracle, he could turn him into a constant and lasting source of income. Doctor, how much does one charge for a stud service? For a champion sire, between $3,000 and $5,000 per service. The numbers were impressive. With 20 services a year, Miracle could generate between $60,000 and $100,000 annually. Samuel discussed the idea with Margaret and Charles. Everyone agreed it was the best long-term strategy. This way, Miracle stays with us and still generates income, concluded Margaret. And we can help other breeders improve their herds, added Charles. The decision to turn Miracle into a sire for hire was well received by the breeder community. Many preferred this option over buying him. Samuel, you've always been smart, but this time you've outdone yourself, praised Henry Thompson, who had mocked him at the auction. Henry, sometimes the best decision isn't the most obvious one. You taught me that, Samuel. I'll never judge an animal just by its appearance again. The transformation in Samuel's life was remarkable. From a man ridiculed at the auction, he became a reference in cattle breeding in the region. His property, once modest and neglected, was now organized and well-structured. With the income from the stud services, Samuel was able to invest in infrastructure improvements. Margaret, do you remember what our life was like 2 years ago? I do, Samuel. We barely had money for the market. And now? Now we are respected and prosperous thanks to your intuition. Samuel's story became a legend in the region. It was told and retold as an example that it's worth trusting your instincts. Young breeders sought out Samuel to hear advice and learn from his experience. Mr. Samuel, how do I get the same luck you had? Son, it wasn't luck. It was patience, dedication, and a lot of courage to go against what others thought. Charles had become an official partner of Samuel. With the prosperity of the business, he managed to pay off his father's debts and even buy back part of the family's old ranch. Mr. Samuel, my father would be proud to see where we've gotten. Charles, your father is watching, and he is certainly proud of you. Star, at 5 years old, had become the most respected brood cow in the region. Besides Miracle, she had 3 more calves, all of exceptional quality. Samuel, Star is a champion-making machine, commented Dr. Thomas. Doctor, she was always special. I just knew how to recognize it. Samuel's property now received visits from university students who came to study animal breeding and selection techniques. Professor, how did this man manage to identify a valuable cow under those conditions? Asked a student during an academic visit. Experience, intuition, and especially the courage to trust his own judgment, replied the professor. Samuel enjoyed receiving the students and sharing his experience. He felt useful helping to train new breeders. One Saturday afternoon, 3 years after the famous auction, Samuel was observing Miracle in the pasture when an unexpected visitor arrived. It was Colonel William Walker, the man who had offered $60,000 for the calf. Samuel, I've come to apologize to you. Apologize for what, Colonel? For calling you crazy when you refused my offer. Colonel, you don't need to apologize. Everyone acts according to their understanding. Samuel, you taught me that sometimes what seems like madness is actually wisdom. The conversation with the Colonel marked a moment of reconciliation. Many of those who had criticized Samuel now sought him out to make peace. Richard Carter also appeared to talk. Samuel, I need to admit I was wrong. You saw what none of us saw. Richard, we all make mistakes sometimes. The important thing is to learn from them. Samuel, can I ask you a question? Of course. How did you know that cow was worth it? Samuel reflected before answering. Richard, it wasn't that I knew. I felt it. And I decided to trust that feeling. The answer left Richard thoughtful. He realized that for years he had focused only on technical aspects, ignoring intuition. Margaret watched the transformations in the community with satisfaction. Samuel, you've changed how people see animals. Margaret, I just showed that it's worth giving a chance to those nobody else wants to give one to. And that applies to people too, not just animals. Charles had married Elizabeth, a young veterinarian who fell in love with the ranch's story. The couple worked together with Samuel in caring for the animals. "Mr. Samuel, Elizabeth has some interesting ideas for expanding our business." "What kind of ideas, Charles?" "Creating a training program for young breeders." Elizabeth's proposal was ambitious but viable. With the reputation they'd earned, they could create practical courses in cattle selection and management. "Elizabeth, do you think there would be interest?" "Mr. Samuel, we get weekly calls from people wanting to learn your methods." The training center project became a reality in the 5th year after Star's purchase. Samuel's property became a national reference in cattle breeding. Students from all over the country came to spend time learning selection techniques, management, and especially developing intuition for dealing with animals. "Professor Samuel, what's the secret to identifying a good animal?" some new student would always ask. "There is no secret, son. There is observation, patience, and the courage to trust what you see beyond appearances." Samuel's transformation from a ridiculed rancher to a respected teacher was a source of pride for the entire family. Margaret had become the official manager of the business. Her organization and practical sense were fundamental to the company's success. "Samuel, you take care of the animals. I'll take care of the numbers. Margaret, we've always been a good team, and now we're a prosperous team too." The financial success allowed the couple to fulfill old dreams. They renovated the house, bought modern equipment, and even managed to travel for the first time. "Samuel, do you remember when our biggest dream was to replace the old pickup truck?" "I do, Margaret. And do you remember when I spent our last $500? "I do. It was the best financial decision you ever made in your life." Charles and Elizabeth had twins who grew up playing among the ranch animals. Samuel became a surrogate grandfather to the boys. "Uncle Samuel, tell the story of the cow star again," the children would always ask. "Just one more time, okay?" And Samuel would tell the story with the same enthusiasm as the first time, always emphasizing the importance of giving chances to the less fortunate. Star, now elderly but still healthy, continued to produce exceptional calves. Her descendants were spread across ranches throughout the country. "Samuel, Star is already a great-grandmother," commented Dr. Thomas during a visit. "Doctor, she created a dynasty. And you created a legacy." Miracle, at 8 years old, had become the most sought-after breeding bull in the region. His breeding schedule was always booked months in advance. "Mr. Samuel, Miracle already has over 200 registered offspring," informed Charles, consulting the records. "And all with the expected quality?" "All of them, Mr. Samuel. His genetics are truly exceptional." Miracle's success completely validated Samuel's decision to keep the animal. The accumulated profits over the years surpassed any offer he had received. On a special afternoon, Samuel received an honor from the Regional Breeders Association. "Samuel Miller, you revolutionized our way of seeing cattle breeding," said the association president during the ceremony. "Thank you very much. But I just did what my heart told me to do." And that heart was right. The commemorative plaque was placed at the entrance to the property. "Hope Estates, Samuel Miller, Visionary Breeder." Margaret cried with emotion during the ceremony. "Samuel, I never imagined we would get this far." "Margaret, neither did I, but I always believed our time would come someday." And it came in a big way. The same men who had mocked Samuel at the auction were now his admirers. Henry Thompson had become one of his best friends. "Samuel, you taught me to be more humble. Henry, we all learned something on this journey. I learned that sometimes the one who seems the most foolish is the wisest." Richard Carter also changed his perspective on animal breeding. "Samuel, after your story, I started observing the animals I buy more carefully." "And did it work?" "Yes, it did. I found 2 exceptional animals that everyone else overlooked." Samuel's influence in the community went beyond business. His story inspired people to trust themselves more. Mrs. Martha, the 70-year-old neighbor, commented with pride, "Samuel is proof that it's never too late to change your life." The ranch's training program had trained over 100 young breeders. Many of them already had their own prosperous properties. "Professor Samuel, everything I've achieved is thanks to your teachings," said Raphael, a former student who became a successful breeder. "Raphael, you succeeded because of your talent and dedication. But it was here that I learned to believe in my potential." Elizabeth had developed a social project to teach basic breeding techniques to young people from underprivileged families. Mr. Samuel, these boys need opportunities like the one Charles had. Elizabeth, you're right. Let's support this project. Are you sure, sir? It will mean work and expense. Elizabeth, helping others is the best way to give thanks for the blessings we receive. The social project has become a benchmark in the region. Dozens of young people have learned professions related to animal husbandry and have gotten jobs or started their own small businesses. Samuel, you are changing lives, commented the city mayor during an official visit. Mr. Mayor, I'm just giving back a little of what I received. Samuel's humility impressed everyone who knew him. Despite his success and recognition, he maintained his characteristic simplicity. One Sunday morning, 10 years after the famous auction, Samuel was in the pasture observing Star, when he was approached by a reporter. Mr. Samuel, 10 years later, how do you assess your decision? Samuel looked at Star, now surrounded by children and grandchildren, then at his prosperous and well-organized property. Son, the best decision of my life was to trust myself when everyone doubted. And what advice would you give to someone going through a similar situation? Trust your intuition. Sometimes it sees what the eyes cannot. Mr. Samuel, do you regret anything? Samuel thought for a few seconds. Yes, I do. I regret not having trusted my intuition more times throughout my life. The interview was published in a national magazine specializing in agribusiness, spreading Samuel's story even further across the country. Charles, now 35, had become a recognized specialist in cattle selection. His experience with Star and Miracle had credentialed him as a consultant for major breeders. Mr. Samuel, I received an invitation to give lectures in other states. Charles, accept it. It's important to share knowledge. But I don't want to leave the ranch uncovered. Charles, Elizabeth can help me here. You need to grow professionally. Charles's lectures always began by telling the story of Star and Samuel. His main message was about the importance of giving chances to the less fortunate. My friends, I learned from Mr. Samuel that value is not measured by appearance alone, he always said in his presentations. Margaret had become president of the Regional Cattlemen's Wives Association. She used her position to encourage other women to participate more actively in the family businesses. Girls, we women have a special intuition for dealing with animals, she taught in the meetings. Mrs. Margaret, how did you develop this skill? Some participant would always ask. By observing and supporting my husband, I learned that behind every successful rancher is an attentive woman. The couple had become an example of a successful partnership. Their golden anniversary was celebrated with a big party at the ranch. Samuel, 50 years of marriage and you still surprise me, said Margaret during the party speech. Margaret, you taught me that the best investments are the ones we make with the heart. The party brought together over 300 people, including ranchers, veterinarians, students, and friends from the entire region. It was a celebration not only of the marriage, but of the entire journey of overcoming. Star, even at 15, was still healthy and active. She had become the matriarch of a family that included more than 50 direct descendants. Samuel, Star is a phenomenon of nature, commented Dr. Thomas, now retired, but still visiting the ranch regularly. Doctor, she is a phenomenon of love and care. Samuel, you are right. Well-treated animals live longer and better. Miracle had become a regional legend. His children and grandchildren won prizes at exhibitions across the country, cementing his reputation as an exceptional sire. Dad, Miracle is more famous than many television stars, joked Charlie, one of the twins, now 10 years old. Miracle is famous for the right reason, son, for being good at what he does. The family's children had grown up among the animals and developed the same passion for cattle raising. Samuel dreamed of seeing the tradition continue through the next generations. One day, a very special visitor arrived at the ranch, the grandson of Mr. Arthur, the auctioneer who had conducted the historic sale. Mr. Samuel, my grandfather always told your story with admiration. Your grandfather was very important that day. He could have discouraged me, but he respected my decision. He said it was one of the most memorable auctions of his career. The young man had become an auctioneer too, and wanted to learn about animal selection to better advise his clients. Mr. Samuel, how can I identify special animals at the auctions? Son, look beyond the physical appearance. Look for animals that have something special in their gaze, their posture, their behavior. Samuel's guidance influenced a new generation of auctioneers who began to value characteristics that were once neglected. On a memorable afternoon, 15 years after buying Star, Samuel received a visit from an international documentary filmmaker interested in telling his story. Mr. Samuel, your story is inspiring for people all over the world. Son, it's just the story of an ordinary man who trusted his intuition. But stories like that are rare these days. The documentary, The Rancher and the Rejected Cow, was shown in several countries and brought Samuel international recognition. Correspondents arrived from different continents, from people who identified with the story and wanted to share their own experiences. Samuel, you've become a worldwide inspiration, commented Margaret, reading a letter that arrived from Europe. Margaret, that makes me even more responsible. Responsible how? Responsible for continuing to be an example that it's worth following your heart. Hope Estates had become a rural tourism destination. People came from far away to meet Star, Miracle, and hear the story directly from Samuel. Mr. Samuel, you changed my life, said a visitor from another state. How so, ma'am? Your story inspired me to trust myself more with important decisions. Testimonials like this became common. Samuel realized his experience transcended animal husbandry and touched fundamental aspects of human nature. The ranch's training center had graduated over 500 students over the years. Former students held important positions in agribusiness companies across the country. Professor Samuel, everything I know about animals I learned here, said Marcus, who had become the technical manager of a large cooperative. Marcus, you learned because you had talent and dedication. But it was here that I discovered that talent. Elizabeth had completed her doctorate, studying the selection methods developed at the ranch. Her thesis became an academic reference in the field. Father-in-law, your intuition has become science, Elizabeth joked, showing the published thesis. Elizabeth, science only proved what I always knew, that love and dedication make a difference. Charles had opened his own consultancy and worked with major breeders from across the country. His expertise, developed while caring for Star and Miracle, was nationally recognized. Mr. Samuel, I'll never forget that it all started with your trust in me. Charles, I just gave you an opportunity. You're the one who showed your worth. But without that opportunity, I would never have discovered my calling. The partnership between Samuel and Charles had transformed into a deep friendship, which served as an example for many other relationships in the region. On a special morning, 20 years after the historic auction, an official delegation arrived at the ranch to present Samuel with the title of Meritorious Citizen of the region. Samuel Miller, you have honored our land with your wisdom and generosity, said the government representative during the ceremony. Samuel, now 82 years old but still sharp and active, was moved by the tribute. Thank you so much. I never imagined a decision made with the heart could yield so much recognition. Mr. Samuel, your decisions were always right because they were made with love. Margaret, at 80 years old, continued to be the inseparable partner. Together, they had built a legacy that transcended generations. Samuel, do you remember what I said when you bought Star? I do, Margaret. You said you'd leave me if I didn't get rid of her. That's right. It was the biggest nonsense I've ever spoken in my life. Margaret, you were right to be worried. I was just the lucky one. Samuel, it wasn't luck. It was wisdom. Star, at 25 years old, was considered a veterinary miracle. Few cattle reached that age maintaining quality of life. Mrs. Star is proof that love and care make a difference in longevity, commented the new generation of veterinarians visiting the ranch. Samuel spent several hours of the day talking to Star, as if she understood every word. Thank you, girl. You changed my life and the lives of many people. Star responded with soft moos, as if she truly understood Samuel's gratitude. Miracle, at 20 years old, remained active as a stud. His descendants already numbered over 1,000 registered animals spread across the entire continent. Papa Samuel, Miracle is more important than many politicians, joked Charlie, now a veterinary student. Miracle is important because he does good for many people, son. And politicians don't? Some do, others don't. Miracle always has. The ranch had become a model of sustainability and social responsibility. The training project for underprivileged youth had benefited more than 1,000 families. Mr. Samuel, how many lives have you changed? Asked a journalist during an interview. Samuel reflected for a long time. Young lady, I haven't changed any lives. I only showed people that they could change their own lives. But isn't that changing lives? It's giving them the opportunity to change. The interview response became a famous quote, cited in motivational speeches across the country. One Sunday afternoon, Samuel was in the pasture observing the 5th generation of Starr's descendants when Charles approached. Mr. Samuel, sometimes I think about how our lives would have been if you hadn't bought Starr. Charles, there's no use thinking about what could have been. What's important is what we managed to build. And we built something incredible, didn't we? We did, Charles. We built a family, a legacy, and above all, we proved that it's worth trusting your heart. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Elizabeth with the grandchildren, now teenagers, and already showing interest in continuing the family tradition. Grandpa Samuel, when I grow up I want to be a breeder like you, said Charlie. Son, be yourself. If that includes being a breeder, let it be with passion and dedication. Grandpa, will you teach me the secrets? There are no secrets, my grandson. There are values, honesty, patience, love for the animals, and the courage to make difficult decisions. Samuel's teachings were transmitted naturally through daily life. There were no manuals or complicated techniques, just solid values and a lot of love. Margaret continued to be the ranch administrator, even at 80 years old. Her organization and practical sense were fundamental to keeping everything running perfectly. Samuel, have you ever thought about retiring? Margaret, retire from what? From what I love doing most in life. You're right. Working with passion doesn't tire you. Exactly, Margaret. It tires you when it's an obligation. When it's a pleasure, it gives you energy. The couple had become an example of active and successful aging. They continued working, traveling, and actively participating in community life. Dr. Thomas, even though retired for 10 years, still visited the ranch regularly. The friendship developed over the years had become very special. Samuel, do you know what my greatest lesson was working with you all? What is it, Doctor? That sometimes the best treatment is love and patience. Doctor, that applies to animals and people. Especially to people. The retired veterinarian's visits always sparked philosophical conversations about life, work, and relationships. One day news arrived at the ranch that moved everyone. Starr had been selected to have her story told in an exhibition about animals that changed lives at the National Agriculture Museum. Mr. Samuel, Starr is going to become a museum piece, joked Peter. Peter, she's been a museum piece for a long time. How so? A rare, unique, irreplaceable piece. The exhibition gathered stories of animals that marked their owners' lives. The story of Starr and Samuel was one of the most visited. Schoolchildren came on field trips to see the exhibition and always left impressed by the story of the rejected cow who became a legend. Teacher, is this story really true? Some child would always ask. Yes, child, and the lesson is that we should never judge by appearance. The educational message of Starr's story reached new generations, perpetuating important values about second chances and trusting intuition. On a special morning, 25 years after the historic purchase, Samuel woke up and found Starr lying peacefully in the pasture, as if she had fallen asleep forever. Margaret, our Starr has passed, said Samuel, his eyes moist. Samuel, she had a beautiful and full life. Margaret, she gave us much more than she received, and she left in peace, surrounded by love. Starr's passing mobilized the entire region. Hundreds of people attended the wake, paying tribute to the cow who had changed so many lives. Mr. Samuel, Starr lived longer than many humans, consoled Dr. Edwards, successor to Dr. Thomas. Doctor, she lived each day intensely, and left an immense legacy. Star's legacy included over 2,000 registered descendants spread across the entire continent. Her genetics would continue to influence cattle breeding for many generations. Samuel decided to turn the place where Star used to rest into a memorial with a plaque telling her story. Star, the cow who taught that value isn't measured by appearance, read the inscription. Visitors to the ranch always stopped at the memorial for reflection. Many left with a new perspective on hasty judgments. Miracle, even at 25 years old, remained healthy and active. He seemed to have inherited his mother's exceptional longevity. Dad, Miracle misses Star, observed Peter, noticing changes in the bull's behavior. Peter, we all do, but she left a beautiful family for us to keep caring for. That's true. Look how many of her descendants are playing in the pasture. The continuity of Star's lineage ensured her memory remained alive through every animal that carried her genes. Samuel, at 87, remained active and sharp. His routine included morning walks through the pasture, conversations with the animals, and meetings with the young people who came to learn at the ranch. Grandpa Samuel, don't you ever get tired? Asked Julie, granddaughter of Elizabeth and Charles. My granddaughter, when we do what we love, there is no tiredness. I want to be like you when I grow up. Julie, be better than me. Each generation should surpass the previous one. Samuel's teachings were naturally absorbed by the new generations, who grew up surrounded by solid values and practical examples of dedication. Margaret, even at 85, kept a sharp mind and continued managing the financial aspects of the ranch with impressive efficiency. Samuel, our grandchildren are having opportunities we never even dreamed of. Margaret, that's what happens when we plant seeds of love and dedication. And those seeds keep germinating, and they will continue for many generations. The couple watched with pride the family they had built. Stepchildren, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all united by their love for animals and the values learned on the ranch. Charles, now 50, had become a national reference in cattle breeding. His consultancy served clients in several countries, but he never forgot his origins. Mr. Samuel, everything I achieved was based on what I learned here. Charles, you achieved it because you had talent. I only helped you discover it. But without your initial trust, none of this would have happened. Charles, sometimes a small opportunity can change an entire life. Elizabeth had become a university professor and director of the country's most respected Bovine Genetics Research Center. Her thesis on Samuel's methods was studied internationally. Father-in-law, your intuitive methods have been scientifically validated. Elizabeth, science only proved what the heart already knew. But now we can teach these methods systematically, as long as they don't lose the essence, love for the animals. The ranch's training center had become a rural university, offering courses recognized by the Ministry of Education. Students from various nationalities came to study the Samuel Miller methods. Professor, how did you develop that special intuition? Some international student would always ask. Son, it wasn't about developing. It was about trusting what already existed within me. But how do we know if we have that intuition? Everyone has it. The question is having the courage to follow it. Samuel's classes were always in high demand. Even at 87, he maintained the enthusiasm of a young teacher. One day, a delegation from the national government arrived at the ranch to propose that Samuel's story be included in rural education textbooks. Mr. Samuel, your story should be known by all the children in the country. Thank you very much. I am honored by the recognition. Mr. Samuel, what message would you like the children to learn? Samuel thought carefully before answering. That it's worth trusting your intuition, giving chances to the rejected, and never giving up on your dreams. Those are valuable lessons for any age. The inclusion of the story in textbooks ensured that millions of children learned the lesson of Samuel and Star. Teachers from all over the country reported that the story inspired important discussions about prejudice, second chances, and persistence. Mr. Samuel's story changed how my students view differences, reported a teacher during an educational seminar. On a special morning, 30 years after the historic auction, Samuel received a visit from Mr. Arthur III, great-grandson of the original auctioneer, who had become the most respected auctioneer in the region. Mr. Samuel, my great-grandfather, always said that was the most important auction of his career. Your great-grandfather was crucial that day. He could have discouraged me. He used to say he was certain you knew what you were doing. Actually, I didn't know. I just felt I should trust. And your trust changed many lives. The young auctioneer had implemented changes in the auctions, giving buyers more time to observe the animals before the bids. Mr. Samuel, how many treasures might be overlooked for lack of careful observation? Son, probably many. That's why it's important to give everyone a chance to show their value. Samuel's influence had even changed the dynamics of regional auctions, creating opportunities for previously neglected animals. Margaret remained the inseparable partner, even facing some limitations of age. Her clarity and good humor remained intact. Samuel, have you ever thought about writing a book telling our story? Margaret, why write it if we can keep living it? So that other people can learn from our experience. Margaret, people learn better by seeing practical examples. The couple had decided that the best book was the life they had built themselves, open to all who wished to learn. Charlie and Julie, now in college, had chosen careers related to veterinary medicine and animal science. The family tradition would continue for generations to come. Great-grandfather Samuel, we want to continue your work, the young one said during a family dinner. My great-grandchildren continue, but always innovating and improving. How so, great-grandfather? Each generation must do better than the previous one. Use what you learned from me as a foundation, not as a limit. The young ones grew up understanding that tradition and innovation could walk hand in hand. Miracle, at 30 years old, had become the oldest active breeding bull in the country. His vitality was the subject of scientific studies. Mr. Samuel, what is the secret to Miracle's longevity? Asked a visiting researcher. Doctor, love, care, and life purpose. Life purpose in animals? Of course. Miracle always knew he was important and special. Samuel's answer sparked academic debates about the importance of psychological well-being in animals. Hope Estates had become a cultural heritage site for the region. Public policies were created to preserve its history and methodology. Mr. Samuel, your ranch is officially a historical landmark, announced the mayor during a special ceremony. Thank you very much. I hope this helps perpetuate the teachings. Mr. Samuel, which teachings do you consider most important? That every living being deserves a chance, and that love always overcomes prejudice. The landmark designation secured resources to keep the ranch running and preserve its history for future generations. One memorable afternoon, 40 years after purchasing Star, Samuel was at the memorial dedicated to the cow when a very special visitor arrived. It was an international delegation of animal welfare experts interested in studying the methods developed at the ranch. Mr. Samuel, your methods have revolutionized our understanding of animal treatment, said the delegation leader. Doctor, I just treated the animals the way I would like to be treated. But that made all the difference. It always does, Doctor, in any relationship. The international visit resulted in a partnership to develop animal welfare protocols based on the Samuel Miller methods. Charles had become an international consultant and traveled the world teaching techniques developed at the ranch. Mr. Samuel, I've taken our teachings to 5 continents. Charles, that's good. Knowledge should be shared, and everywhere people are impressed by the simplicity and effectiveness of the methods. Charles, the best solutions are always the simplest. Elizabeth had received international awards for her research on behavioral genetics in cattle. Father-in-law, your intuitive methods are being validated by the most advanced science. Elizabeth, science and intuition were never opposites. They are complementary. Did you always know that? I always felt it, Elizabeth. Now you have proven it. The synthesis between traditional and scientific knowledge became the trademark of the school created by Samuel. One special morning at 90 years old, Samuel woke up feeling particularly reflective. It was the 40th anniversary of Star's purchase. Margaret, 40 years ago today, our lives changed forever. Samuel, it was the best decision you ever made. Margaret, it wasn't just a decision, it was an act of faith. And that faith was generously rewarded. The couple spent the day reminiscing about the journey's highlights, the first difficulties, the mockery, the victories, the losses, the achievements. Samuel, if we could go back in time, would you do everything the same? Margaret, I would do everything the same and more. I would trust my intuition more from a younger age. You have nothing to regret, Samuel. I regret nothing, Margaret. I only wish I had found this courage earlier in life. The reflection revealed a man at peace with himself and his choices. That same day, the ranch received a visit from a special group, all the former students who had become successful breeders over the 40 years. Professor Samuel, we came to thank you for your teachings, said Richard, the first student to graduate from the center. Boys, you are the ones who gave meaning to my work. Professor, you changed our lives. Boys, you changed your own lives. I just showed the way. The reunion of former students turned into a celebration, honoring not just individual successes, but most importantly, the values they had learned. Charles, as host, gave an emotional speech. Mr. Samuel taught us that success isn't measured only by money, but by lives transformed. Everyone agreed that the ranch's greatest asset wasn't its valuable animals, but the relationships built and the values passed on. Margaret, even at 88, remained the living memory of the ranch, recalling stories and details even Samuel had forgotten. Samuel, do you remember the day Colonel Walker came to offer $60,000 for Miracle? I do, Margaret. You wanted me to accept. I'm so glad you didn't listen to me that time. Margaret, sometimes we must go against even the people we love. The memory brought laughter, but also reflection on the importance of determination in major decisions. Samuel's great-grandchildren, now young adults, had taken on responsibilities at the ranch, bringing new energy while respecting the established traditions. Great-grandfather, we want to modernize some processes, but keep the essence, proposed CJ. Modernize whatever you want as long as you don't lose the love for the animals. We will never lose that, great-grandfather. It's our most valuable inheritance. The new generation implemented modern monitoring and management technologies, but always prioritized animal welfare. Dr. Edward, who had succeeded Dr. Thomas, had become a close friend of the family and a continuer of the ranch's veterinary traditions. Mr. Samuel, in 30 years of practice, I have never seen animals so healthy and happy. Doctor, the recipe is simple: love, respect, and individual attention. Mr. Samuel, that should be taught in every veterinary school. Doctor, it already is. Elizabeth coordinates a national program based on it. The influence of Samuel's methods had reached university education, forming a new generation of more humane veterinarians. On a special afternoon, Miracle celebrated his 35th year of life, a record for bovine sires. The party brought together breeders from across the country. Mr. Samuel, Miracle is a biological phenomenon, commented a visiting specialist. Doctor, Miracle is a phenomenon of love and care. You attribute his longevity to emotional factors? Primarily. Loved animals live longer and better. Samuel's statement challenged traditional scientific concepts, but was supported by the practical results observed. Charles had written a book telling the ranch's story, Star, Miracle, and the Wisdom of the Heart. The work became a national bestseller. Mr. Samuel, the book is inspiring people all over the world. Charles, that's good. Knowledge should be shared. Mr. Samuel, what makes you proudest on this journey? Charles, I am proud to know our story has given hope to many people. The book was translated into several languages and used in rural development programs in emerging countries. Elizabeth had become dean of the country's leading agricultural sciences university, implementing the Samuel Miller methods throughout the curriculum. Father-in-law, your teachings are now official educational policy. Elizabeth, I hope that helps train more humane professionals. Absolutely, father-in-law. The new generation already shows significant differences in approach. The institutionalization of Samuel's methods ensured that his teachings reached thousands of students annually. One Sunday morning, Samuel was taking his routine walk when he found an orphaned calf in the pasture. abandoned by breeders passing by on the road. "Margaret, I found an abandoned baby," said Samuel, arriving home with the animal in his arms. "Samuel, at 90 years old, are you still taking in abandoned animals?" "Margaret, as long as I have strength, no animal will be turned away here." "Samuel, you never change. You're still the same big-hearted man." The episode demonstrated that Samuel's essence remained intact, always willing to give chances to the rejected. The orphaned calf was named Hope II, honoring the family tradition. Under Samuel's care, it developed quickly and showed exceptional characteristics. "Great-grandpa, do you think Hope too will be special like Star was?" asked Julie. "My great-granddaughter, all animals are special when they receive love. But some are more special. Some have more opportunity to show what they are." Samuel's philosophy remained simple and profound. Opportunity and love make the difference. Charlie, now a graduated veterinarian, had taken over the technical care of the animals, allowing Samuel to focus on the relational aspects. "Grandpa, your methods are more effective than many modern treatments." "Charlie, medicine without love is just technique." "Grandpa, can I include that in my specialization thesis?" "Of course, my grandson. Knowledge should be perpetuated." The new generation of professionals trained at the ranch took a differentiated approach to veterinary medicine out into the world. One special afternoon, 45 years after the purchase of Star, a delegation from the National Parliament arrived at the ranch to propose that Samuel receive the country's highest civilian honor. "Mr. Samuel, you deserve national recognition for your services to animal husbandry." "Thank you very much, but I only did what my heart told me to do." "Mr. Samuel, that is exactly what makes your example special." The honor was granted in an official ceremony in the city, with the presence of authorities and representatives of the rural community from across the country. "Samuel Miller, you have demonstrated that greatness is not measured by possessions but by positive impact on the lives of others," said the president during the ceremony. Samuel, at 92, climbed onto the stage with difficulty but with impressive dignity. "Thank you very much for this honor. I dedicate this recognition to the memory of Star and to all who believed in second chances." The simple and sincere speech moved the entire audience. Margaret, even with physical limitations, insisted on accompanying her husband at the ceremony. "Samuel, I am so proud of you." "Margaret, without you, none of this would have been possible." "Samuel, we built this together." "We did, Margaret, and we left a beautiful legacy." The ceremony was broadcast nationally and watched by millions of people, spreading the message of hope and perseverance even further. Back at the ranch, Samuel resumed his simple routine: morning walks, conversations with the animals, and meetings with students. "Grandpa Samuel, how does it feel to be the most famous man in the region?" asked CJ. "My great-grandson, fame is a consequence. What's important is to continue doing good." "Grandpa, what do you consider the most important thing of all you've built?" "The family we formed and the values we perpetuated." The answer revealed the priorities of a wise man: relationships and principles above material achievements. Hope, too, already 2 years old, was beginning to show characteristics that reminded them of Star. Her docility and intelligence impressed everyone at the ranch. "Mr. Samuel, do you think we have another miracle being born?" asked Charles, observing the heifer. "Charles, every animal is a unique miracle." "But are some more special?" "Charles, after 50 years, I've learned that everyone is special when given the right chance." The accumulated wisdom had taught Samuel that there were no ordinary animals, only missed opportunities. One winter morning, Samuel woke up feeling it was time to start preparing the ranch's transition to the new generations. "Margaret, we need to organize things for the boys to take over." "Samuel, you still have so much to give." "Margaret, I do, but I also need to teach them to walk on their own." "Samuel, you've always been wise in these decisions." The transition process was gradual and careful, ensuring the values and methods were preserved. Charlie and Julie were designated as the direct successors, with Charles and Elizabeth continuing as advisors. "Great-grandfather, I promise to keep all the teachings alive," said Charlie during the transition ceremony. "My great-grandson, don't keep them. evolve from them. What do you mean, great-grandfather? Use what you've learned as a foundation to discover new things. The guidance reflected Samuel's progressive mindset, tradition as a foundation, not a limitation. Margaret, even at 90, remained sharp and involved. Her memory was the living archive of the ranch's history. Samuel, do you remember the first day you brought Star home? I do, Margaret. You were angry with me. Angry is an understatement. I thought you'd lost your mind. Margaret, sometimes madness is the most sensible thing to do. The couple's memories were shared with the new generations as life lessons. Miracle, at 38, continued to be visited by breeders from all over the world. His exceptional longevity had become the subject of international scientific studies. Professor Samuel, Miracle defies all theories about bovine longevity, commented a Japanese researcher. Doctor, love isn't part of the theories, but it makes all the difference in practice. Professor, this could revolutionize animal husbandry worldwide. Doctor, it doesn't need to revolutionize, it needs to humanize. Samuel's answer summarized his philosophy. More than advanced techniques, animals needed humane treatment. On a special afternoon, 50 years after the historic auction, the ranch organized a grand celebration. Thousands of people attended to honor Samuel and remember the journey. Mr. Samuel, 50 years later, what is your assessment of your decision? Asked a journalist. Samuel, 95 but still sharp, reflected carefully. Son, I've learned that trusting your heart is always the best choice. Mr. Samuel, any regrets? Yes, I regret not having trusted my intuition more often in life. And if you could give one piece of advice to the young, don't be afraid to go against majority opinion when your heart says it's right. The advice was recorded and became Samuel's most quoted phrase. The celebration included exhibitions with Star's descendants, lectures on the methods developed at the ranch, and testimonials from people influenced by the story. Mr. Samuel's story changed how I see life, said a visitor from another country. My dear, I'm glad to know our experience was good for something. It was good for a great deal, sir. It taught me to give chances to the rejected. Testimonials like this multiplied, showing the reach of Samuel's influence. Charles, now 65, had become one of the most respected breeders internationally. Mr. Samuel, everything I've achieved in life was based on the teachings I learned here. Charles, you achieved it because you had character and determination. But it was here that I discovered that. Charles, that was already in you. It just needed an opportunity to come out. The conversation reflected Samuel's characteristic humility, always attributing successes to the talents of others. Elizabeth had received international awards for her contributions to agricultural science education. Father-in-law, your methods are being applied in universities across 5 continents. Elizabeth, that's wonderful. Quality education should reach everyone. Father-in-law, are you proud of what we've built? Elizabeth, I am very proud, but mostly I am proud of the people you have become. The answer revealed that for Samuel, people's personal development was more important than professional achievements. On a quiet morning, Samuel was at Star's memorial when he had a special conversation with Hope II, now a 4-year-old heifer. Hope 2, will you carry your great-grandmother's name with dignity? The heifer responded with a soft moo, as if understanding the responsibility. Samuel, you still talk to the animals as if they understand, commented Margaret, arriving to join him. Margaret, they do understand. They understand love, respect, and affection. Samuel, after 50 years, you're still the same. Margaret, some things should never change. The constancy and core values was one of Samuel's most admirable traits. Charlie had defended his doctoral thesis on intuitive methods in bovine selection, based entirely on Samuel's experience. Great-grandfather, your intuition has become official science. Charlie, science and intuition have always been the same thing. They just use different languages. Great-grandfather, can I quote that in my next publication? Of course, my great-grandson. Knowledge should be shared. The new academic generation formed at the ranch was revolutionizing agricultural science education across the country. Julie had created an international exchange program, bringing students from all over the world to learn at the ranch. Great-grandfather Samuel, students from 20 countries want to come study here. Julie, let them all come, knowledge has no borders. Great-grandfather, how will we host so many people? Julie, those who want to learn always find a way. So do those who want to teach. Samuel's willingness to share knowledge remained limitless even in old age. On a special afternoon at 96 years old, Samuel received a visit from an international delegation that wanted to create the Samuel Miller Award for breeders who excelled in humane methods. Mr. Samuel, we want to eternalize your teachings through this award. Thank you very much. I am honored by the recognition. Mr. Samuel, what criteria do you suggest for the award? Love for animals, respect for nature, and a willingness to help other breeders. The criteria proposed by Samuel became the foundation of the most respected international award in animal husbandry. Margaret, even at 93, continued to be the inseparable partner and the living memory of the ranch. Samuel, did you imagine we would come this far when we bought Star? Margaret, I only knew I had to try. And it turned out better than anyone could have imagined. Margaret, when we do things with love, the result always surprises. The couple's reflections summed up the half-century journey, love and determination as the basis for extraordinary achievements. Hope, the two, had become a mother, giving birth to a calf that was named Future. The fifth generation of Star's lineage was born with even more impressive characteristics. Great-grandfather, Future is beautiful, exclaimed CJ, observing the newborn. My great-grandson, every birth here is a miracle. Great-grandfather, do you think Future will be special? CJ, everyone is special. The question is knowing how to recognize and develop that specialty. Decades of wisdom had taught Samuel that potential exists in everyone, but it needs to be discovered and nurtured. On a spring morning, Samuel was taking his routine walk when he encountered a group of children from the local school visiting the ranch. Mr. Samuel, is it true that you talked to a cow and she told you she was special? Asked a little girl. Samuel smiled at the innocence of the question. My dear, Star didn't talk to me with words. She spoke to the heart. How so, Mr. Samuel? Sometimes the most important things are felt, not heard. The simple explanation touched not only the children but also the teachers present. Charles had launched a mentorship program for young breeders from underprivileged families, perpetuating the cycle of opportunity started by Samuel. Mr. Samuel, we've already helped over 100 young people start their own businesses. Charles, that is what makes me proudest in our entire journey. Mr. Samuel, many of them are already more successful than we were at their age. Charles, that's the idea. Each generation must go further than the last. The mentorship program had become a national model for sustainable rural development. Elizabeth had been appointed to an international committee on agrarian policy, taking Samuel's teachings to the world stage. Father-in-law, I'm going to present your methods at a world conference on sustainability. Elizabeth, present them. But remember that sustainability begins with love for nature. Father-in-law, that will be the foundation of my presentation. Elizabeth, guaranteed success then. Samuel's influence was reaching the main international forums discussing the future of agriculture. On a memorable afternoon, Miracle celebrated his 40th year of life, setting a world record for longevity among breeding bulls. Mr. Samuel, Miracle has entered the record books, informed a representative from the international organization. That's good. He deserves that recognition. Mr. Samuel, what do you attribute this exceptional longevity to? Love, care, and life purpose. Miracle always knew he was important. Samuel's statement was officially recorded as the explanation for the record. Charlie had inaugurated the first veterinary clinic based entirely on the Samuel Miller methods. The innovation attracted international attention. Great-grandfather, our clinic is receiving animals from other countries. Charlie, that's good. Healing knows no borders. Great-grandfather, the results are impressive. A cure rate 30% above the national average. Charlie, love is the best medicine. You've just proven it scientifically. The clinic became an international reference center for humane veterinary medicine. Julie had created a mobile app that taught Samuel's methods through virtual reality. Modern technology, serve to perpetuate ancient wisdom. Great-grandfather, millions of people all over the world are learning your methods through the app. Julie, technology in the service of wisdom. Very good. Great-grandfather, we have users in over 50 countries. Julie, good knowledge knows no borders. The app had democratized access to Samuel's teachings, reaching small breeders in remote countries. On a special morning at 97 years old, Samuel woke with a different feeling. It was as if he knew his mission was complete. Margaret, I think my time to rest is coming. Samuel, you're fine, don't talk nonsense. Margaret, I am fine. I am, in fact, complete. I've done everything I had to do. Samuel, there's still much to do. Margaret, now it's up to the boys, they are prepared. The conversation revealed a man at peace with himself and his legacy. Charles, upon hearing of the conversation, sought Samuel for one last important piece of guidance. Mr. Samuel, what final advice do you give me to continue your work? Charles, don't continue my work. Continue the work of good. How so, Mr. Samuel? Charles, what matters is not perpetuating my name, but perpetuating the values we learned together. The final guidance summarized Samuel's essence, values above personal recognition. Elizabeth also wanted a special conversation with her father-in-law. Father-in-law, how do we keep your philosophy alive? Elizabeth, by living it every day, teaching by example, not by words. Father-in-law, are you sure we are ready? Elizabeth, you are more than ready. You are inspired. Samuel Miller's confidence in the new generations was absolute. Margaret Miller, sensing her husband's intention, wanted to have an intimate conversation about the future. Samuel, if you go first, what becomes of me? Margaret, you stay with the certainty that we built something beautiful together. Samuel, I don't know how to live without you. Margaret, you won't live without me. You will live with all the good memories we built. The final conversation sealed 5 decades of true companionship and love. Samuel spent his last days visiting every animal on the ranch, as if saying goodbye. He spoke at length with hope too and with future. Take good care of this family, okay? He murmured to the animals, who seemed to understand the solemnity of the moment. On his last morning, Samuel woke up early and took his routine walk to Star's memorial. Thank you, girl. You changed everything in my life, he said, touching the commemorative plaque. When he returned home, he found the whole family gathered, as if everyone knew it was a special moment. My family? Thank you for making my dreams come true, said Samuel, looking at each one. Grandpa Samuel, thank you for teaching us what true love is, replied Charlie, representing everyone. Samuel smiled, closed his eyes peacefully, and passed away surrounded by the love of 5 generations he had helped to form. Samuel Miller's wake mobilized the entire region. Thousands of people came to pay tribute to the man who had proven that intuition and love can change the world. Samuel Miller taught that greatness is measured by the number of lives we positively touch, said the pastor during the ceremony. Representatives from various countries sent condolences and tributes. The Samuel Miller Award was officially launched during the funeral. Margaret, even in her grief, demonstrated the strength she had learned in 5 decades by her husband's side. Samuel fulfilled his mission. Now it's our turn to continue, she said to the gathered family. Hope Estates continued operating normally, now under the direction of the new generations. Samuel's methods were preserved and continued to be developed. Charles officially assumed overall management. Elizabeth continued coordinating the educational area. Charlie took care of veterinary aspects, and Julie developed the technology programs. We have to honor great-grandfather Samuel's legacy, said CJ, representing the 5th generation. We'll honor it by doing even better, added Julie. Hope the Sen became the new matriarch of the ranch, carrying Star's genetics and memory for future generations. Future grew up demonstrating characteristics even more impressive than his ancestors, proving that the lineage started by Star would continue to evolve. Grandpa Samuel remains with us through every animal born here, observed Charlie. Miracle, even at 42 years old, remained healthy and active. He seemed to have inherited not only his mother's longevity, but also her special wisdom. 1 year after Samuel's passing, the ranch organized the first Samuel Miller Week, an international event bringing together breeders, students, and researchers interested in humane breeding methods. "This week perpetuates the teachings of a simple man who changed our way of seeing animals," said Charles at the opening. The event became annual and attracted participants from all over the world, establishing the ranch as a global reference center in humane cattle breeding. Margaret, at 94 years old, remained lucid and active. She had become the official guardian of Samuel's memory, telling stories to visitors and students. "Mrs. Margaret, what was the secret to Mr. Samuel's success?" Visitors would always ask. The secret was having no secret. It was being genuine, loving, and courageous enough to follow your heart. Margaret Miller's simple answer summarized decades of shared wisdom. Charles had written a second book, Beyond the Star: The Eternal Teachings of Samuel Miller. The work became required reading in veterinary and animal science courses. "Mr. Samuel taught me that raising animals is about building relationships," Charles wrote in the introduction. Elizabeth had implemented the Samuel Miller program in over 100 universities worldwide, training a new generation of humanized professionals. "My father-in-law's legacy is to shape people before shaping professionals," she declared at an international conference. Charlie had expanded the network of Samuel Miller Method veterinary clinics to 10 countries, revolutionizing animal treatment on a global scale. Great-grandfather Samuel proved that medicine with love is more effective, he would always tell new employees. Julie had developed an artificial intelligence program based on Samuel's methods, capable of identifying potential in seemingly ordinary animals. "Technology can amplify human intuition," she explained in her technical presentations. 5 years after Samuel's passing, Hope 2 gave birth to exceptional twins, Hope Through and Miracle 2. The birth was celebrated as a symbol of the continuation of the special lineage. "Grandpa Samuel is sending gifts from heaven," joked CJ during the birth. The twins were born with characteristics that surpassed even Star and Miracle, suggesting the lineage continued to evolve positively. Margaret, upon seeing the twins, was certain that Samuel was still watching over the ranch. "Samuel, you're still working miracles," she murmured, looking at the newborns. Hope Estates had become a World Heritage Site, recognized by UNESCO as an example of sustainable development based on humanitarian values. Samuel Miller's ranch represents the best of the relationship between humans and nature, declared the international organization's representative. 10 years after Samuel's passing, his story continued to inspire people all over the world. Films, documentaries, and books were produced telling the journey of the rancher who trusted his intuition. Samuel Miller's story proves that one person can change the world when they act with love and determination, concluded an award-winning documentary filmmaker. Charles, now 75, had become the official guardian of Samuel's teachings, traveling the world to share the wisdom he had learned. "Mr. Samuel taught me that true success is measured by the number of smiles we create," he would always say in his lectures. Elizabeth, at 70, had received the title of Educator of the Century for revolutionizing agricultural science education based on Samuel's methods. "My father-in-law proved that quality education begins with love for the students," she declared upon receiving the honor. The new generation, represented by CJ and Julie, now in their 40s, had expanded the ranch's influence into areas such as animal psychology and animal-assisted therapy. "Great-grandfather Samuel taught us that animals are natural therapists," Julie explained in her research. Margaret, even at 100 years old, remained lucid and present. Her longevity was attributed to the love she had shared with Samuel and the family they built together. "Mrs. Margaret, what is the secret to your longevity?" journalists would ask. "To live each day with love and purpose, just like my Samuel did." Miracle had become the longest-lived breeding animal in history, at 47 years old, still active and healthy. Scientists studied his case as a unique phenomenon. "Miracle defies all theories about animal aging," declared an international researcher. Hope III and Miracle 2, now 5 years old, displayed characteristics that surpassed all their ancestors. The lineage started by Star continued to evolve in an extraordinary way. "Each generation is better than the last, just as Grandpa Samuel dreamed," observed Charlie. Hope Estates had inspired the creation of over 1,000 similar properties worldwide, all following the Samuel Miller methods of humane farming. Samuel Miller's dream has multiplied 1,000-fold, commented an international expert. 15 years after Samuel's passing, his philosophy had become a global movement. The International Day of Humane Farming was celebrated annually in 50 countries. Samuel Miller changed our relationship with animals forever, declared the international coordinator of the movement. The ranch continued to receive visitors from all over the world. A special wing was created as a museum, preserving Samuel's personal belongings and documenting his journey. "This place is sacred to everyone who loves animals," commented a Japanese visitor. CJ and Julie had fully taken over the management of the ranch, implementing technological innovations without losing the humane essence. "Grandpa Samuel always said that tradition and innovation must walk together," recalled CJ. The family's 6th generation had been born, great-grandchildren of Charles and Elizabeth, who grew up playing among the animals and naturally absorbing the ranch's values. "The children are born here already knowing how to love animals," observed Margaret, now a great-grandmother to a large family. On a special afternoon 20 years after Samuel's passing, the entire family gathered at Starr's memorial for a gratitude ceremony. "Grandpa Samuel and Grandma Starr, thank you for changing our family forever," said Charles, representing all generations. The memorial had become a place of pilgrimage for breeders from around the world, who came seeking inspiration and spiritual guidance. "Samuel and Starr continue to guide everyone who arrives here with an open heart," commented the local tour guide. Margaret, at 102 years old, continued to be the living memory of the ranch, telling stories that moved even those hearing them for the 100th time. "Mrs. Margaret, don't you ever get tired of telling these stories?" "My dear, I never tire because each time I tell them, I touch someone new's heart." Margaret's dedication to preserving and sharing Samuel's memory was considered one of the pillars of the legacy's continuity. Hope III had become a mother, giving birth to a calf that was named Eternity. The 7th generation of Starr's lineage was born carrying even more exceptional characteristics. "With each generation, the animals become more special," observed Charlie, now an internationally renowned veterinarian. Miracle too had become the new chief sire of the ranch, inheriting not only the exceptional genetics of his father, but also his longevity and vitality. "Miracle 2 is proof that Miracle's genetics will continue for many generations," declared Elizabeth in her research. Hope Estates had become an official university, offering internationally recognized undergraduate and graduate courses. The Samuel Miller University trains professionals and, above all, better human beings, declared the inaugural dean. 25 years after Samuel's passing, his influence had reached every continent. Over 100,000 professionals had been trained following his methods. Samuel Miller created a quiet revolution in worldwide animal farming, declared a specialized historian. Charles, at 80 years old, had written his memoirs, 50 Years with Samuel Miller, A Journey of Transformation. The book became a worldwide bestseller. "Mr. Samuel taught me that personal transformation is the first step to changing the world," he wrote in the conclusion. Elizabeth had founded the Samuel Miller Foundation for Humanized Education, which had already benefited over 1 million students in developing countries. "Humanized education is the most important legacy we can leave," she declared during the founding ceremony. The new generation of professionals trained at the ranch occupied leadership positions in international organizations, spreading Samuel's teachings across all sectors. "Wherever we work, we carry the values learned at the ranch," stated a former student who became a director of a global organization. On a special morning, 30 years after Samuel's passing, Margaret awoke with a feeling of completeness, similar to what her husband had felt. "My children, I think my time to meet Samuel is approaching," she said to the gathered family. "Grandma Margaret, you're fine, don't talk like that," requested CJ. "I am fine, my grandson. I am simply ready for the reunion." Margaret, at 105 years old, had lived a full life rich in love. Her passing was peaceful, surrounded by the affection of 5 generations she had helped raise. Margaret's wake gathered even more people than Samuel's. She had become a symbol of strength, wisdom, and unconditional love. "Margaret taught us that behind every great man is a great woman," said Charles during the funeral speech. The ranch continued operating normally, now under the full direction of the new generations. The legacy of Samuel and Margaret remained alive in every decision made. "Grandpa Samuel and Grandma Margaret are still with us through the values they planted," declared Julie. Eternity had grown up demonstrating characteristics that seemed to summarize the best of the entire lineage started by Star. It was as if she were the perfect synthesis of generations of evolution. "Eternity carries within her the soul of all the ancestors," observed Charlie. Miracle, the original patriarch, had reached 50 years of life, setting an absolute world record for longevity among breeding cattle. "Miracle is the living symbol of Samuel Miller's philosophy," declared the international committee that registered the record. Hope Estates had inspired public animal welfare policies in dozens of countries. The Samuel Miller methods became a worldwide reference for animal protection legislation. Samuel Miller's influence transcended animal husbandry and reached public policy, noted an animal law expert. 50 years after purchasing Star at the auction, the ranch organized the half-century celebration, bringing together representatives from 100 countries to honor the legacy built. 50 years ago, a simple man trusted his intuition and changed the world, said the ceremony's keynote speaker. During the celebration, the Samuel Miller Institute for Animal Welfare Research was inaugurated, which would become the world's most advanced center in the field. "This institute will forever perpetuate the teachings of Samuel Miller," declared the inaugural director. CJ, representing the fifth generation, gave an emotional speech about the continuity of the legacy. "Grandpa Samuel taught us that true legacies are not measured in money, but in transformed lives." Julie presented impressive data on the global impact of Samuel's philosophy. Over 5 million animals worldwide received treatment based on the Samuel Miller methods. The new generation of Star's descendants, now in the 8th generation, continued to demonstrate increasingly exceptional characteristics. "With each generation, we prove that love and care can even improve genetics," observed a visiting geneticist. The memorial for Star and Samuel had become one of the most visited sites in the region, receiving pilgrims from all over the world seeking inspiration. "This place emanates a special energy of love and hope," commented a visitor from another continent. During the celebration, it was announced that Samuel's story would be included in the mandatory school curriculum of 20 countries. "Children all over the world will learn about courage, intuition, and love through the story of Samuel Miller," announced an education minister. The Samuel Miller Award had become the most prestigious honor in global animal husbandry, annually recognizing professionals who excelled in humane methods. "This award represents the very best in the relationship between humans and animals," declared the president of the International Committee. The ranch had created an exchange program that had already trained over 10,000 professionals from 100 different countries. "Hope Estates is a global embassy for humane animal husbandry," observed a visiting diplomat. On a special afternoon, 60 years after the historic auction, the ranch received a visit from a special delegation, descendants of the original auctioneer who had conducted the sale of Star. "My great-great-grandfather always said that was the most important auction of his life," said the young visitor. "Your great-great-grandfather was fundamental to our story," replied CJ. "He respected Grandpa Samuel's decision when he could have discouraged him." The visit symbolized the perpetuation of memory through generations, showing how a single decision can echo through time. Hope Estates had become a model of environmental, social, and economic sustainability, inspiring thousands of similar properties around the world. Samuel Miller's ranch proved it is possible to prosper economically while maintaining humanitarian values, declared a sustainable development expert. Star's descendants had spread across all continents, carrying her special genetics and the philosophy of love that accompanied them. "Wherever Star's descendants are, they carry Samuel Miller's message with them," observed an international genealogist. The new generation of the family had expanded the philosophy to other areas: veterinary hospitals, animal rehabilitation centers, and animal-assisted therapy programs. Grandpa Samuel taught us that love heals not only animals but also people, explained Julie in her therapy presentations. On a memorable morning, 70 years after the purchase of Star, a very special calf was born on the ranch, Hope Seventh, who seemed to carry within herself all the exceptional characteristics of her ancestors. "It's as if Star had returned," murmured Charlie, moved upon seeing the newborn. The birth was celebrated as a symbol of the eternal continuity of the lineage and the values it represented. The ranch had become a pilgrimage destination for people of all religions who came seeking peace and spiritual renewal. "This place touches the soul of anyone who arrives here with an open heart," commented a visiting religious leader. Samuel's legacy had transcended animal husbandry and become a life philosophy adopted by millions of people worldwide. "Samuel Miller taught that greatness lies in giving opportunities to the rejected," declared a contemporary philosopher. On a quiet afternoon, the family gathered again at the memorial for Star and Samuel to renew their commitment to keeping the legacy alive. "Grandpa Samuel and Grandma Margaret, we promise to continue planting seeds of love and hope throughout the world," said the new generation in unison. The gentle breeze blowing at that moment seemed to carry the loving response of the grandparents, blessing the continuity of the mission. Hope Estates continued to grow and evolve, but always maintaining its original essence, a place where rejected animals found love, people discovered their potential, and human values were cultivated and perpetuated. "This ranch is living proof that a decision made with love can transform the world forever," concluded a historian, contemplating the panoramic view of the property. And so, the story that began with a man mocked for buying a seemingly useless cow continued writing new chapters, inspiring generations and proving that love always triumphs over prejudice, intuition always surpasses appearance, and that every living being, no matter how rejected it may seem, carries within it an extraordinary potential waiting for the opportunity to blossom. End of story. This was a fictional story created to touch our hearts. Now tell us what you thought. Do you believe Samuel made the right decision by trusting his intuition? Share your opinion and tell us where you're watching from. If you have any similar experience to share, leave it in the comments with sincere words. Thank you very much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.